Yes, that's right. You're few. You have to clap louder and longer. Thank you very much. I'm very happy now to welcome another dear friend of the summit. He studied computer science in Zurich and Darmstadt, and over 20 years ago, he founded his company Arago to push the boundaries of artificial intelligence. Arago runs Hero, Europe's leading AI platform that promises to automate anything. Advising Chancellor Merkel as part of the Digital Council is something that has not been automated yet and has to be done in person by our speaker himself, which is probably for the better. Give it up for Chris Bose, everyone.
So I think I'm going to listen to this talk from Hans about 5 times again, because him talking about hybrid AI and implicit and explicit knowledge and knowledge graphs is exactly what I've been working on for the last 25 years, and most of the time I've been laughed at. And now it's hot shit, awesome. And also the part about the Corona up, very funny, if it weren't so sad. But I've come to talk to you a little bit about like the forward-looking part of AI. So I think we can say AI is just here. Like, can we conclude it? It's here, period. We don't have to discuss it, it's coming and blah, blah, blah. But what the fuck do we do with it now? Like, what do we do with it? And that's the question. So let's very briefly look at the past. And I'm saying that we've been hitting the wall with our systems long before the pandemic came. The capital markets valued innovation in Silicon Valley much better than the industry in Germany. 3 platform companies are more capitalized or have more market cap than the entire German publicly listed economy together. I mean, that says it all. The future is in a different economic and technical model, and industrial production is the past. But we can also see this in macro numbers, right? Revenue per employee. I mean, if you compare Apple and Volkswagen, that's just sad. But the real number is this, right? The contribution of time spent by employees to actual productivity. That is going down for tens of years. And it is nothing that just came around the corner, boop, and appeared quickly. I mean, this is where we're coming from. And then AI comes onto the market. And where are we there, right? Digitization, most people still think that digitization has anything to do with pattern matching and predictions. Yeah, AI can do that, but that's not the point, right? The point is that we are at the end of the industrial era. I mean, depending which part of history you're looking at, that has started 150, 200 years ago. And we have done extremely well on industrialization, but that's coming to an end. We came from self-sufficiency, agriculture, 70% of us were farmers, right? And we came to tailorizing work, meaning that we have specialized people doing specialized things, and then we invented the steam machine and enhanced our force and were able to multiply ourselves. And what we really did was we catered to economies of scale. Like, everything that we did was basically the economies of scale, where we tried to analyze stuff, standardize, consolidate, and then we could justify building a factory or a process or something else in order to get there. And the whole point was to allow to build an assembly line, to build a factory, so we could mass produce cheaper. No one said it nicer than Henry Ford, right? You can have any color as long as it's black. By the way, this is how marketing was invented. We had to convince people that whatever we were able to produce is what they wanted. Right? So, but that's not what AI needs, right? AI can do automation right. What we call automation now is stupid robots running a stupid script. And if we look at the story of RPA, robotic process automation, right? They are scripts. Guys, scripts were like any computer person on a host did a script. That was not a big deal. How do I get back? Don't know. Anyway, so the point of artificial intelligence is that with the implicit and explicit knowledge collected in our data pools, we can have a machine find an individual solution for every individual problem. We no longer need to standardize and consolidate and analyze and so on. The AI will do this for us. And this can be applied to literally everything. Everything probably that is not language, because language is still much too hard, and everything that is not innovation, meaning that actually would get any model to its catastrophic failure mode, and people can be passionate about it and say, yeah, but I still want to try it. But 80% of what we do today can be done by machines with today's technology. When I get this across to CEOs and I talk to people, then the usual reaction is, yeah, okay, seems to make sense, but let's make a 20-year plan or a 30-year plan. And I just don't get this. I mean, there's no reason why there should be a 30-year plan. Since the electrification of things, no new technology took 20 or 30 years to actually go exponential and be spread throughout the population at an exponential rate. With the iPhone, it was less than a year. So no, this is not like, a lot of people have been trying to slow this down, and all this discussion that we have on worrying about machines that can take over and so on, I very much agree, right? This is like worrying about the overpopulation of Mars. Like, we're not there. We don't understand self. How can we build a machine? We're engineers. We build things we understand, right? So we don't build a machine that has a self. This is not the problem. The problem is that this is happening very quickly, and whoever makes it happen has a huge economic benefit, and if you don't make it happen, you are simply screwed. And if you want to compare this, it took us 150 years of industrial revolution to get from 0% automation to 29% automation. And even a conservative, an old-fashioned entity like the World Economic Forum tells us that only 7 years will have an increase of another 20% in automation. Like, that is amazing. So I'd like to walk out and say, like, give you 4 theses or 4 predictions that I want to make what happens. So the first one is, if we don't act now, for some reason these slides keep on moving by themselves, right? So the simple point is, if we don't act now, there simply is no future. And I always find it very funny when people talk about environmental protection. It sounds like there's an environment and it has nothing to do with us. All these people are delusional, right? The planet can live without us. We can't live without the planet in its current state. It's our total self-interest to protect the planet. This has nothing to do with tree huggers or esoterics. We need the planet to work. Otherwise, we just disappear. And if we look at those numbers, right, we're consuming the planet at a fantastic rate. And we should probably stop doing that. If you look at populism and what is happening here in terms of opinionated people coming out with totally irrational opinions, this is an old problem, only it is on the rise. It's showing our system is not stable anymore, because you can outright lie and there's still 30% of people who will actually vote for you or help you or whatever. This is crazy. In an educated country like Germany, you have people who've gone to university and they step out in the street and tell us that Bill Gates is drinking children's blood. Hello? Like 50 years ago, you put these people in a mental institution. Populism works. There is an attack on our core industries. Just e-mobility threatens 400,000 jobs in the car industry. And the investment of AI is increasing, but it's not increasing as it should be, which is a bit dangerous. What is very interesting is the health system, right? We're digitizing. A lot of people actually believe that in the health system we can use AI, and they would be happy to have an AI doctor. And right at this point, we hand off the first big initiative on health, which is COVID, is not run by governments, is not run by legitimized people, it's run by Google and Apple. Maybe because governments can't do it, and it's pretty sad. And then we have trade. People are complaining that our inner cities are dying, and all you get there is food stands, and then the pandemic comes and all the food stands close, and basically there's nothing left of wholesale commerce. And all we can do is help these people jump on the bandwagon of Google and have their online shops. That's not Google's fault. That's our fault for not transforming or not going ahead and helping these guys to adopt technologies like AI to bring out the best they can, because if they could automate everything, service from person to person cannot be automated. simply because we like interacting with our own species. So I hope I made the point. The first thesis is that we're pretty fucked if we don't do anything. The second one is that our system that we currently have, right, the system where politics has to be angry with society and economy has to be sad at people and politics, and people are unhappy with politics and economy. All this leads to a very stable system, right? Everybody pulling at the two others means that we have a stable center. And this has worked for us for 70 years now. Well, actually, we're only running it like this for 30 years or 40 years. But it has created a fantastically stable system. And this is great. Like, this is the world. This is the reality we're living in. The problem is that our system, our industrial system, has come to an end. The ball of stability is now on the top of the pyramid. And if we keep pulling at each other, the ball will roll down on whoever side pulls hardest next. What we need is a switch to actually have everybody work together so we come to a knowledge economy, to a new type of system where implicit, explicit knowledge is given to machines. Machines do most of the jobs. People can focus on what they're best, which is coming up with new stuff and interacting with other people. This is the biggest change ever. It's not a technical change. It's not a research change. It is a society change. And if society changes, politics changes. The funny thing is that the ones that are very focused on profit, they are going first. Third prediction, technology is the solution, right? If we look at AI in agriculture, like 10% of farms are already using drones. That is out there. They are using artificial intelligence algorithms to feed their livestock to make sure that we don't overuse antibiotics and all these things. Weather predictions with extreme weather events coming up, all these things are AI algorithms. This is applied. We're already using it. It's the same with the medical field, right? We can now have minimal invasive procedures and so on. All these examples that come out here, these are applications of AI, but they're tiny steps. We need to encourage these guys to make the next big step that is out there. And one of the most crucial points, this also applies to learning. Like, our current school system was invented so people wouldn't go crazy when they had to work in a factory. That was the schooling we're getting, and that we could eventually make engineers out of some. Now, we need to make a scientist and a curious person and a self-responsible person and a person that wants to do something out of everybody. But how we're doing this in our current system, right? We walk children, we take them from kindergarten to primary school to secondary school to university, and everything there is catered towards making people uniform. And then when they get out of there, we as companies go and like, fantastic little guy, how about you start thinking outside the box? What we need is lifelong learning, and we need to make this attractive to people. Every little child is born as a little scientist. How do we keep this alive, this curiosity? And of course, it's AI or technology is a driver of mobility. It's not just self-driving cars. It's not just fleet management, but it is the change in model. Like, why does everybody need a car? Everybody just wants to go from A to B. Not just in cities, but also in rural areas. And of course, this is enabled by AI algorithms. And the new type of work, where we're getting more collaborative and where we're working together and where we're actually jumping on a bandwagon to make sure that we don't cater to people who are process compliant and do the same and the same and the same and the same thing over and over again. Are you surprised that these guys have more fun doing their hobbies than having their jobs? What we need to foster is people's creativity and their ability to solve a new problem every day and their interest in actually solving these problems every day. So, having looked at this, and hopefully I've said that AI is about getting shit done, the question is, where does Europe stand on this? Right? If Europe wants to find its own way, it should be humanism. It should be a human way. Like, in America, the goal is efficiency. Everything has to submit to profit. In China, it's cohesion. Like, we don't want individuals, we want a cohesive society. That's what the system is. If Europe really wants its own way, We have to cater to humans. And that fits very well because the humans create the implicit and explicit data that we need to progress AI systems. Like, if you really want that, that's what we do. But this creates a different type of society, right? This creates a society where curiosity and where community, the many, outrank the one, where curiosity actually outranks security, where facts are more important than belief, and where thinking is more important than feeling. And I think this is absolutely essential. These type of systems can only be implemented, or this type of change can only be implemented in a society where there's nothing left to lose, or where there's overabundance. We are still, despite the crisis, in a society where there is absolute overabundance. We can do this, and we can see that it's extremely profitable, and we can see that we can take our development on from here. This is important. So if we look at this, to me, the really important thing, and I'd like to spend a couple of minutes on this one, I wanted to, is if we want to implement AI, we have to stop doing pilots, tests, proof of concepts, and all these things that are only there to show that the technology works. The technology works. Like, pick the one that you like best, but the technology works. That's not the question. The question is, are you able to make the change to actually let AI work for you? Can you let go, or do you have to be a control freak about it? I mean, if you just want a predefined process to run, you don't need an AI. You've got to let the machine find an efficient solution. Then you need an AI. But that's a total change in mindset. Haltung in German. Like, this is important. If you can't let that go, you will always end up with prototypes. We have fantastic scientists. They do basic research, and we have whipped them into shape so that they don't try to do end solutions. They only do prototypes. That is increasingly sad to see, because they could do fantastic solutions that could be scaled out quickly and could have tremendous success for the typical Mittelstand company, for big companies, for startup companies. It doesn't really matter. So stop doing that. Don't try proving a technology that works, because it already works. It's your mind that you need to work on. And for that, look at improving. That's what we're very good at. Get the next 2% out of it. But also look at improving the improvement. Like making a big step, going from producing cars to running a car fleet, going from selling drills to selling holes. These old examples, they're now old examples, but there's so few people, thank you, but there's so few people who actually attach to this. So the point that I'm trying to make is we've got to move now. Right now, we own the knowledge. Right now, we have the data. Right now, we have the technological power, and we have the ability to do it. Once we sell the knowledge, once we're outranked in research, all of that is gone. The point is we've got to act now, and we've got to act decisively. Not baby steps, not trials. And the pandemic is a fantastic point in time to do this, because no one would have predicted a breakdown in business models as has happened now. I have met a few CEOs who said, if I do nothing now, the company might go bust, but my career is unharmed. And this is like saying no one ever got fired for hiring IBM. IBM is a great tech company. You could hire them anytime. But the point now is we pay managers large salaries so they're able to make risky decisions. It's a time for decision making right now, and most of those decisions should include AI as the driving force. Thank you very much. Hey, this has not happened before. I'm 1 minute early.
Thank you, Chris. I was surprised as well. Yes, please feel free to ask questions, dear audience. Obviously, Chris, you made a very good point, right? You said the tech already works. You don't have to prove that. Work on these, work on the edge cases, right? Be innovative. But you also talked about how we make people, or we create minds and persons who are not innovative, right? Who are not courageous enough to do it. Otherwise, they would be doing it already. So how do you think should this change come about without the few or hopefully many who listen to your speech and say, right, I'll just get up and do it. But I think for every one of those, there's maybe 1,000 people who say, I'm not sure if he's right. I'm quite cozy where I am.
So, I mean, Hans made the perfect point, right? He described the German angst very well. And unfortunately, it's not just German angst, it's European angst now, right? We've infected everybody with this, seemingly. I think that we have to, on a public side, become more open to change. If people try something and they fail, our reaction shouldn't be laugh at them and maybe kick them a little more. Our reaction should be, thank you for trying. Right? I would say that's the biggest thing. And if you look at, also example from Hans, the Corona app, where we put data protection before health, and data protection was so important that we didn't collect data, and now everybody's crying for data. If I had been a politician, I would have made exactly the same decision with the public pressure that came, right? The point is, this public pressure should have not been there. Mm-hmm. We ourselves have to come into a position where we think like at least one step ahead, right? And not just in the here and now. And I think this is important. It is not something that we can ask of someone else to do. It is something that each and every one of us needs to think is, do I respect people who try something new? Because something new, otherwise the economy is going to go down massively if there are no people who try something new, right? And will I accept a change? Will I accept that solidarity comes from me too? It means I have to give something so the whole society can profit, and I eventually profit more and things like this. So it's a very personal thing, and I think we've lived in a space for a very long time where the only question was, what can I get? Mm-hmm. Like, my question would be, like, if I give this, what can I get?
Mm-hmm. Right. How do you stay on your toes and on the bounce in your own company? How do you stay creative? Can you make sure that everyone that you employ is like a creative type of person, comfortable living on the edge, or how do you deal with that?
Not everybody needs to be a super creative person, right? When we talk about creativity, it's not only the big ideas. And I mean, in my company, you have the fortune or misfortune of having a crazy person like me there who has many big ideas. But the point is that the value of creativity has to be given even to the small creatives. I think there's 3 types of creativity. One is the artist type of creativity, right? The person who's willing to swim against the stream. This is what we typically call the big ideas. Right? Someone who says, I want blue paintings. Everybody goes, no, blue paintings suck. You say, I still love blue paintings. Right? And you can say, like, I want data. Everybody goes, no, you can't have data. And then you say, I still want data, and you're going to build something great. The second type of creativity is the engineering type of creativity. And I think in Germany we have lots of that. And I think in Europe, in France, I've seen fantastic engineers. These are people who take components from unlikely sources, or unlikely combinations, and bring them together and create a solution that people go like, what? Mm-hmm. Wow. These are type of engineering creativity. And I think what we totally undermined is the pioneers, right? The pioneers, the people who need more risk to be happy. In the olden days, these people walked on ships. Today, a few pioneers build rockets. We can see a huge increase in extreme sports, right? People climbing mountains without ropes and stuff like this, because they need the kick. But the problem is, we don't honor pioneers in society, meaning that they do these extreme sports rather than contributing to society. We've got to get those pioneers back into companies and say, like, do it, take the risk of a fall, but we think you're cool. Right. At least we should say they're cool.
And is what you think of like a call going out to the individuals for change, or do you envision something like, I think Elizabeth Warren in the US talked about big structural change, like engineered by politicians maybe, like more on a global scale? What kind of change do you have in mind when you talk about these things?
Well, if you look at the US, it's very polarized, right? So Trump isn't the problem, it's the result of a problem. And this polarization is because these humanistic principles completely went out the window, which is sad. And we shouldn't let that happen. I believe it's a very individualistic thing. The question is, do we as individuals believe that you fare better being an egotistical, egocentric person, or do you fare better being a community-oriented social animal? Everything in evolution points towards the latter.
Right.
But we behave towards the former.
Right. Yes, I agree. I do have a question here from the other Daniel who's helping us out a lot today. What are your wishes for the leaders of a better tomorrow from your perspective of changing the status quo as powerfully as possible?
Look, I always
You can have any wish, you know, it's free. Probably it's also inconsequential, but it's free.
I hope it's not inconsequential, right? So
I hope so too.
I would wish that we rediscover solidarity and that leaders that we have, no matter if they're left or right, accept that we're social animals and that the short-term benefits of egotism can never outweigh what we get if we work together.
All right, thank you very much. Maybe one last question, because I was quite curious. You were talking about different kinds of creativity, the artistic and the engineering creativity. Where do you see yourself? Like, I would guess in between, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, probably. I mean, I'm stubborn, so I go against the stream for a long time, and this is why I like Hans's talk so much, where he said implicit and explicit knowledge have to be combined, otherwise it can't be applied properly to industry. Only 2 years ago I said this, and there were a bunch of pure machine learning guys sitting at the table, and they go like, and where's the AI in this?
Right.
Now it's hot shit, right? So it's really the ability to swim against the stream for a bit. But I'm also an engineer. Like last night, I went to bed at 3 o'clock because we were running large simulations, and it's interesting.
Right, and I'm very glad to have you as vigorous and as awake as we saw and heard you today. Thank you very much, Chris Bulls.
Thank you.
Thank you.